right, guys, welcome to the Ravit Show. And here we are. Very happy to have my next guest today, Scott Taylor, the data whisperer. Obviously, he's uh, the man in the data field. And we'll be talking a lot today about his new book. Uh, and also, just want to give a small gist about who Scott Taylor is, the data whisperer and principal consultant at Meta Consulting, and author, podcast host at Cloudera, speaker and advisor, and a lot more. Today we'll learn about his journey, and also he's popularly known as the data whisperer, as I said. So let's get him here. Hey, Scott, welcome to the Ravit Show.
Ravit, how are you? Nice to see you. Finally, we're on the show. We made it happen. Thank you so much for having
me. Yes, this was supposed to happen on the 5th of Feb, but for some reason we couldn't make it. But here we are. And if I'm not wrong, Scott, you have 4 gigs today, just today.
4 gigs today. Big day, big guy. You're one of them. I did a webinar earlier today for the UK and Europe. I've got Dama Italy coming up next for my as part of my virtual world book tour. Since I can't go anywhere, I can be everywhere. And then closing out the day with another podcast interview with the folks at Data Decisioning. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about how people talk about data. So,
wow.
Meta, we're about what we're about. It's about what it's about. I spend all my time talking about how people talk about data. So kind of an interesting twist there. Yeah.
This is fantastic. Right, George is already yeah. Hey, George. Okay. So quick question that I had. Obviously, we are giving away for everyone who's joining. I would want to let them know what are we giving away today, Scott.
I think we're giving away 2 copies of the book. Whoops.
Wow.
2 copies of my book here. Telling your data storytelling for data management. Just so you know, 99% buzzword free. I didn't want to overpromise. So we kept it at 99% there, but it's going well. It's hitting the mark. People are liking it.
Yes, it is, and definitely I can validate that because coming from a publisher's end, I read your book and I loved it. So as George says, it's the data book of the year.
Book of the year. Thank you, George.
So why not we start with your introduction and let people join in and ask questions?
Sure, and happy to entertain any questions from folks out there. Part of the beauty of doing these LinkedIn Lives is people kind of interact with you. Scott Taylor, the data whisperer. I help calm data down. We help tame data. I'm from the data management part of the space. I kind of look at all things in technology and data as one of 2 buckets. You're either trying to determine the truth in data management, data governance, data stewardship, standards, MDM, RDM, master data, reference data, metadata, all that kind of stuff. Everything. Or you're trying to derive meaning out of data. That's where data science comes in, analytics, business intelligence, visualization, AI, ML, all that other stuff. So I'm clearly on the truth team, hence the meaning of my truth hat here. Determine the truth first before you derive meaning. And my storytelling that I do, and the storytelling I'm trying to help people with, is to understand there's 2 types of data storytelling out there. One for analytics, which is the more popular one. People have been writing books about it for a while. Right. And then a second one, which is stories about your data for data management. And there's a book out there about that, data storytelling for data management, telling your data story upside down. There we go.
Yes.
And so I really felt like there was room in the space to open up and talk about 2 types of data storytelling. And everybody needs both. Not Sophie's choice here. You need both.
Yes, definitely. We all need both. And someone even wants your book there. So
all right. What's your book? If you don't win one, you can go to Technics Publications. Use my discount code Data Whisper. You'll save 20%. Or you can get it on Amazon or wherever you want. So good.
Looks like Erica feels that you are the entire universe of data.
Oh, am I? Oh, thank you, Erica. I don't think I'm quite totally. I'm the foundation part. So really, in all seriousness, hey, Michelle in Orlando, good to see you.
Yeah.
You know, it's all built on that stuff. So master data, reference data, metadata, foundational piece parts, the most important data any organization has, the most powerful data any organization. It's going to work harder than any other data you've got out there.
Yes.
And that's the part I'm always, yelling about, because I feel like the analytics side, the data science side, gets a disproportionate amount of the spotlight. So we've got to raise the banner for the data management side as well.
Yes, definitely. And talking about that, obviously you are everywhere, Scott. You have already like 4 gigs today. So I wanted to know, how is it experience? First, what was your first step, and how did you come up with an idea of writing a book?
So the book came out of just my desire to formalize a lot of the work I've done over decades, helping people tell their data story. I didn't call it that
Right.
then. But I started off at some iconic data brands, worked for Nielsen, Dun & Bradstreet, these, global, long-term, stalwart brands in the data space that provide data to enterprises. And we had to spend a lot of time explaining why it was important for an enterprise to use the data that we managed for them.
Yeah.
And from that, I heard every kind of data story. And I also had a challenge explaining it. So when people didn't understand it on the business side, they didn't want to hear about data models. They didn't want to hear about primary keys and hierarchies. They didn't want to hear about APIs and all the rest of that stuff. They wanted to understand why this data was going to be important to them, and why it was going to help them achieve their business goals. And everybody talks about that now, which is great. So when COVID hit, I realized now's the time. I'm either going to do this or not do this. It was thinking about it for a couple of years and just went, all right, I'm never going to get this kind of time again. I got to buckle down and put the book together. And you know what it takes to put these out. It's a lot of work.
Yes, definitely.
It's not always fun, but I'm really thrilled with how it came out, and people seem to be enjoying it. And we're just, running off it from there. But it was, I'm really pleased.
Wow, exactly.
Everything ended up, but
yes, someone just asked a question, where can we get? Okay, Pawar asked a question, where can we get? And here I've posted about it. You can get it on Amazon and Technic Publics. So
or if you go to technicspubs.com, which is the publisher, my discount code works there. It doesn't work on Amazon, but Technics Pubs, it works. Data Whisperer is just a discount code. And go from there. So, are you not giving it to us free? No, 2 people are going to win one, but if you don't win,
definitely
everybody's in there. It's
Jason is here, another book writer, and
hey, Jason.
Data Means Business, another great book by Jason as well. So, okay, we'll talk about obviously Scott's book for today. But another question around the book. So, what were the 2 challenges that you faced writing a book? Obviously, time. I know when you think about writing a book, you need to have that mindset. You need to have that headspace, and obviously, COVID kind of brought you there. But what were the 2 challenges that you faced? It would be interesting for us to know about it.
What the focus was always important. I mean, when I wrote it originally, my original drafts were like way too, it was telling my life story. It's like, this is not my life story. This is not every idea you ever had. That was early on. Some of the early editing I did was, I got to focus on the point of the book, and literally came to me. It was like, every idea I've ever got, even though I threw it in the bucket, they don't all belong in there. So you got to get focused on it. And then making it, spent a lot of, had a lot of experience in shorter form content. So you write 1,000-word blog, or you do a video, or you just do a presentation. Those things are relatively easy because it's just that kind of confined, highly, time or space. So when you do something that's a couple hundred pages, it's all got to pull together. Does the whole thing work? Does it exist as a book, or just a string of a bunch of random ideas? And so that was probably the second thing, certain in terms of a milestone of, okay, do I have just a bunch of random ideas that are all kind of tied together, or do I have an actual narrative, a full book that somebody that experience? And so it was exciting to get the first feedback back from the publisher after he read the draft and went, yeah, you got something here. I was like, phew. All right,
Wow. That's the most important thing, right? When you send a proposal out there and you have the TOC in place and the publishers like kind of having a look at it and they're like, okay, yes, let's do it. Because obviously it kind of I know coming from a publisher, it is we check the market, we see if the book kind of fits in well in our portfolio or no, and then obviously will people kind of buy it or not. There's a lot of research that goes in, and for an author it is kind of challenging because here is my idea and I'm confident about it and this is my business I'm into. So definitely I think great work, Scott. Obviously we know with the book you have just created a masterpiece, and more luck to it. I'm sure there's a second edition that you might plan
I
somewhere
don't know
after
about a second edition. I'm not ready for a second book yet. I just like this is good. I got puppets to work on this year. We can talk about that in a
Oh
minute.
yes.
But the conversation I had with my publisher initially, you kind of touch on it, is really interesting. So he said, okay, what do you want to do? I said, I want to write a book about why data is so important, about
Wow.
why data has strategic. We have all these business people and they don't understand why data is important. And he goes, we have like 20 books on the strategic value of data itself, and none of them are really selling. It's like that topic has been covered enough. So I said, all right, my second idea is data storytelling is probably the hottest non-technical thing going on in the data space. It's all about data. It's all about analytics. There's no data storytelling books that are about data management. So why don't I do one data storytelling for data management versus data storytelling for analytics? He goes, that's a winner. Yes, that one will do.
Exactly.
It didn't really change the book. It didn't change it didn't change the core of what I was writing or had put together or thought about, but it gave it a framework and a direction and a positioning that made sense. And, I get kind of criticism I get a lot is that I oversimplify things. I kind of actually take that as a compliment. It's a lot harder to like boil stuff down. So my work, when I talk about, structured data or use cases or digital transformation, I'm literally only talking about it at a highly conceptual, almost conversational level where you can get through in a business accessible way to some stakeholders. You can't design stuff off of what I do. You don't do your data model off of my concepts. It's a way to talk about it. So framing it as a storytelling book, as a way to, really put that narrative together, kind of freed me from having to prove this stuff technically, because there's a lot of great technical stuff out there. But as I position it, I'm the why, not the how. And you don't want to confuse my book with how to do stuff other than how to tell a story. It's not how to implement data. It's not how to design your data landscape. It's not how to do data management in your enterprise. It's why it's important.
Right. So. And Scott, obviously I've learned a lot when you say why, because I've heard you a lot in talking about hearing you a lot. And that brings me to an important question asked by George here. He says, how did you become a great speaker? Such a great speaker.
Thank you, George. I got to credit absolutely early on. I did a lot of dramatic arts, some in high school, a lot in college. I did a lot of plays, a lot of theater in college. I wasn't a theater major. I was a history major. We talk about that too. But, good liberal arts background I have, which I'm proud of. But that training, I'm just hardcore training. I was in 2 plays every quarter. So that's like 6 or 8 productions a year. You get really good at being up on stage, understanding how to use your vocal, instrument, as they call it, how to prepare, how to stay focused, how to explore objectives. Why are you saying this? When you do dialogue work in some sort of play, you're somebody else, and you have to be that person and talk like they mean what they're saying. You couple that, and then I went into sales, which is very presentational. I was always kind of the top speaker in any organization I was with, and I just love it. So while a lot of people kind of run from it, it was generally my favorite part of any role I had was the part of, doing a big presentation, doing stuff at conferences, events, and that sort of thing. And it's, it's like anything else. It takes practice. You got to want to do it, and you got to know you can deliver. There's a lot of skill and technique stuff that I still work on today
Yeah.
that
It's
helps me do this. But like anything else, you got to throw yourself into it and really commit to wanting to do that. And I think most people who do speaking kind of do it as, you know, if you're not doing it for a living, which I'm doing it, they kind of, you know, get up and they focus a lot on, you know, they'll just kind of talk you through their paper or something like that. But it's I love it. So it's my favorite part of what I do. Absolutely.
yeah. Also, the thing, it kind of brings me to maybe make it your living, and you will start speaking well. That could
Yeah,
be the
but it's
thing.
not, you know, it's not for the you got to want to do it. I mean, people can tell. So energy
Yeah.
helps. You know, people always comment on my energy, on my, you know, passion, all that stuff. You've got to work on that stuff. You've got to realize,
Yeah.
you know, if I'm doing 4 things today, and I'm not bragging, that's just kind of how I do it. So I do a lot of
No. Yeah.
events. My
Exactly.
job, you know, I mean, as a consultant, part of what I do is appear in events and podcasts and webinars and that sort of thing. Every one of them, you got to deliver for those people. You know,
Yeah.
I'm talking to you folks right now. It doesn't matter whether I had something an hour ago or whether I have something in 2 hours. I got to be there now for you, for this group, and act like it's the only thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it is, but you got to put everything else aside when you're on and go, this is what I'm focused on. This is why I'm here.
So how do you kind of switch? It's like 4 events, and now you need to have a different mindset. It is difficult, I know. It can't be something which is, how easy you make it look like. But how do you kind of switch that? Okay, now it's the Ravit Show. I'll watch this. Now I need to go to Dhamma. I'll be going to Dhamma at least. So how
Yeah.
do you do that?
I mean, part of it's prep. You know, I like, my feeling is I'd rather do 4 in a day than 1
Yeah.
every day for 4 days, because there's a lot of energy that goes into it. There's a lot of effort that goes into sort of being
Exactly.
on, right? I mean, I don't have to, like, you know, go over the top here, but you still have to be cognizant of kind of the techniques you're using. And like I said, I draw on my dramatic arts, you know, experience every single day in what I
Yeah.
do. But you know, you get the energy up, you get, you know, I woke up this morning, all right, it's a big day today. This is fun.
Yeah.
We'll crank them out. I think over the last couple of months, I've tried to gang these things up. So I have event days in my calendar. And
Yeah.
when somebody else wants to do something, like I got a podcast interview, it's like, okay, I can do it this day. I'd rather fit it between 2 webinars than
Oh
pick a
my.
whole separate day to do it. 'Cause you know, got to get the mental part.
Yeah.
But
It's difficult, exactly as I was just telling you backstage. If I have to do, 2 shows in a week, I'll be, already feeling that hype in myself that, okay, I have 2 shows, and here you are doing like 4 shows in a day, which is fantastic. Great work,
well,
Scott.
you have
But
another job, okay?
yeah.
So you've got another. I don't have. This is all I do. This is all I do now as a consultant and as a, you know,
Yeah.
kind of
But
data evangelism as a service is what I call it, and
yeah.
help, you know, brands do that. And I work with a couple of great brands. Wind Shuttle and the Comma Group are my sponsors for everything I'm doing this year, and then I've got a bunch of
Wow.
kind of one-shot stuff I do for other folks,
Hmm.
and it's really kind
Yeah.
of built over the last couple of years, so it's really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I wanted to also touch base on the consulting firm that you own. So, what type? I don't want to say that those are services, but those are actual golden nuggets that you share with the world. Being maybe joining your hands with those partners and those sponsors that you have. So, how does it work? What is the consultancy? About, and what's it basic? If someone wants to reach out to you, what's the best approach to get that evangelism as a service?
Yeah, let me help you tell your data story. Every enterprise got a data story to tell, and I, you know, about
Yes, please.
why data is important to their organization, why managing their data is of strategic importance. And when before COVID, my business was like 50-50 events and content versus what I would call product consulting.
Yeah.
And I found the product consulting work was just really just a slog. And, you know, it's a lot bigger project. You know, I don't want to like brag and say it's a lot more work, but you're trying to figure out somebody, you know, trying to help them produce some sort of data product or position it correctly. You got a lot of input. You got to hear a lot of things. You got to come back with some recommendations. I'm good at it. I can do it. It's what I did at Nielsen and D&B. I helped, you know, I was in product marketing and strategy in both those organizations. and led sales at Nielsen around the product that I managed.
Yeah.
But it's so much more fun to just do like a company meeting. So I stopped pursuing these kind of very niche oriented, hardcore product consulting stuff.
Yeah.
And also, at the end of the day, like maybe they take your recommendation and maybe they don't, right? So the satisfaction level is kind of varied.
Yeah.
And I realized there was, as much of a market, if not more so, for just my ability to help people present, tell the story, work on getting excitement in their organization or their community about this really foundational stuff that tends to be rather boring. So I've got a nice, wind at my back on this because the topic itself is inherently unexciting. So today I'm doing, like I said, I work with Wind Shuttle and Comma Group.
Yeah.
We do stuff every month. I've got a couple of things I always do every month for them, whether it's a webinar or a sales meeting or content or blogs. There's always something we're doing. A couple of ad hoc things where associations or other businesses have asked me to do stuff. What's really picking up that's fun is I'm starting to work doing more internal meetings. So I don't really promote these because they're not promotable, but I've done a couple already, and I've got a bunch more in the pipeline here of folks going, we're bringing in our business side to explain to them why we're doing all this data management work. And we saw you on a webinar, we saw you at Enterprise Data World. We really want, can you help us support that? And so those are really fun to do. And for me, it's kind of a game because I just ask them, okay, what are your top objectives at your company? Don't even tell me about the data management. What is your company trying to achieve? And I guarantee I can tie those things to the need for data management. And I had a conversation with a prospect yesterday, and she said, we don't really have that formal of a data management group. We're still struggling to get the data across all our silos together. We haven't really invested in the technology. I go, all right, this could be anybody out there. But our leadership wants to do all these things in AI. We've got a couple data scientists that are just doing projects. And I'm like, yeah, I get this. This is a common situation. All that work is either really ad hoc or in a POC. It's not really driving the business because you don't have the support for data management. She goes, absolutely. I said, then, I'm your guy. So if you want me to help, do an exciting hour or 45 minutes on that topic, I can do it for you. And I offer, even if I'm saying the exact same thing, and a lot of times I'm saying the exact same thing that these data leaders are saying internally, because I come from a relatively objective perspective. I help validate the approach they're taking.
Right.
And helping them sell it in. So, yeah.
And I think it's just not about what they're getting inside, but also a perspective from an outsider is important. And they've seen your work, they've seen you talking, obviously. So that trust factor kind of pinches in, and they're like, Scott is just saying the same thing, but he's just saying something.
Saying it a different way. And I'm really disciplined. I mean, I told her a bunch of things I don't do. I'm not going to talk about analytics other than that relates to data management. I'm not an organizational expert, so how you design your team is not in my space. I had somebody say, well, what we want you to do is come up, tell us what you see the top trends are and then how they I said, I don't do trends. So what I do is there's people out there who are really good at seeing what's coming next.
Exactly.
I sit in the back of the room and go, okay, whatever it is going to need data management. That's what I'll do. So come up with a new trend. When the IoT came out, Internet of Things.
Yes, right.
I'm like, what's that? Does that work? Where does our role in that? Does master data make a difference? And you go, it doesn't take me long to figure out, okay, Internet of Things, everything needs an identifier. It needs to have structured data coming from it. In the IoT, everything needs to connect to everything else when it should. The should part's hard. The should takes authenticated identity. It takes some common data structure. It takes these universal requirements that I've seen everywhere. So very quickly, I was able to go, okay, this IoT thing, it needs data management. Cloud needs data management. Fourth industrial revolution, you got to have data management. So I wait for the thought leaders who come out with the top trends and go, all right, I haven't even looked at these top 10 trends, but I guarantee 6 out of 10 aren't going to happen without data management.
Awesome. I think that is what makes you unique, Scott. Now, obviously, there's a question around trends. Since we are talking about trends, Rasmus Lynn says, what has been the biggest realization for you when it comes to data storytelling? What should one focus on? Is that individual from company to company, or have you experienced some sort of trend?
So the biggest trend I saw was that data storytelling was all about analytics. Was only about analytics, and felt like it needed to be expanded, not in a competitive way, but to add this second type of data storytelling, which is telling stories about the data. Data storytelling for analytics is telling stories with data, visualization. Kate does a great job. Ben, all our friends in the data space who spend a lot of time on kind of that part of the data storytelling world. And so for me, it was, let's tell that other side of the story too. Let's tell that other, I don't care if it's the second story. I'm not looking to be, the first one. It's just recognize there are two kinds of stories you've got to tell, one with your data and one about your data, and everybody has to tell both. And so Rasmus, that, specifically, it is more the same than it is different at every organization. If you're an enterprise, if you're the enterprise, how would you define an enterprise? You have these enterprise data issues, and you've got to have some resources against data management. Otherwise, all this other stuff is just simply not going to work. Just it's not going to happen. And somebody's got to be, I try to, even though I'm the data whisperer, spoiler alert, I don't do a lot of whispering. you gotta shout about it, because we're not in the room. Data managers are really, back to your question about the inspiration for the book, I spent my career talking to a lot of great data leaders and data practitioners in the data management side of the space who were also extremely frustrated because their organization didn't understand why the work they were doing is important.
Oh my.
Didn't understand, and they go through these existential kind of crises every budget year because, we have a new leader, we have a new CIO coming in, and they want to know why we're spending all this money on MDM. It's like, what else are they doing? Why do we have to always explain this over and over and over and over again? And fight for the budget? Data should be its own department, whether it's analytics or data management. And this existential debate happens beyond data management for sure. We're all struggling with why data is so important. We have to prove it. You look at what's going on LinkedIn, everybody's debating about which metaphor to use and which simile to use, and we'll compare it to this, and we'll compare. And I step back and go, okay, that's a symptom of our inability to communicate this clearly.
Right.
So if we can communicate it clearly in a business accessible way, we don't need all these poetic bells and whistles.
It's just the communication needs to be strong enough.
It just feels like there's a one of the biggest challenges, I think, in one of the top 3 biggest problems in the data space is how we talk about it. You can pick your other 2. This could be number 3 as far as I'm concerned, but how we talk about it is a problem.
Right. So talk right, and that solves your problem, but then it's kind of difficult. Okay, there's moving on. I have an interesting question since we're talking about data storytelling. Neeraj Satpal says, Scott Taylor, often it takes more than one data story to tell the whole story. What is your take on exploring data as an adventure book where the audience can pick a path at each end of each section, to follow their interests?
I think what that question is just about the process. It does take a while. There's not like some quick way you can do it. What I have in the book is something I call the 3 V's. It's kind of a framework to help you put it together. Obviously, a knowing wink to the 3 V's of big data, but instead of, velocity, variety, and volume, mine are vocabulary, voice, and vision.
Right.
The word vocabulary are the words you use. Those are important. Pick the right kind of business accessible terminology. Don't come up with new words for old problems and new fancy terminology you think sounds cool. Just use the plain old words of your business. harmonize to a common voice. Harmony doesn't mean everybody sings the same notes, but it does mean they sound good together. And to your point around it takes more than one story, you need to pull together that elevator pitch. Your team needs to be able to explain it as well. How do you explain data management and the importance of it to your CEO if you got a couple minutes?
Wow.
Start with, here's my data model. They'll kick you out of the room. And finally, the third V, vision. Why does what you do in data management enable the strategic intentions of your enterprise, where your company's trying to go? Why does it help you get there? And I've got a whole bunch of exercises in the book to help people understand what those strategic intentions are. I mean, if you're a highly skilled data practitioner, that's why you're there. You've got those techniques. You may not have spent the time building up those soft skills. Right? My training was not in R and Python. My training was in dramatic arts and English literature and music and poetry and all the liberal arts stuff. I'll tell you, that training, that education, what it does, if you study literature, if you study music and art, one of the things they help you understand and see are motifs, are common things, are trends, are figuring out what people are trying to say. And when I listen to people tell their data story or explain their data problem, I wait for those motifs to show up. And they do. Everybody, we have all these silos. It's like, all right, check that box. We can't pull it together. And we have customer problems and we're trying to transform our, customer experience. And you just hear the same stuff, common themes, I won't call it a trend like a market trend, but just the similarity in these situations. And I kind of credit a lot of my liberal arts education background with the ability to see those. You read a whole bunch of Shakespeare plays, your professor asks you to come up with, okay, what's the symbolism? What are the characters trying to do? I mean, all this is applicable in a business sense, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think it totally makes sense and kind of answers Neeraj's question. Also, there was an interesting question about the book. So Shruti Jain asked, so what was your favorite part about putting a book together?
When it was done, the cartoons. I got to do some cartoons. That was like really fun. One fun part was digging through kind of, all right, how do I tell my story? That was kind of the funnest part. So again, not telling my life story, but how do I take kind of highlights from my career and put them in a way that they make sense? Two objectives. One, to prove to people they should listen to me, because who am I? They don't know me. So here's my background in data, and find those kind of historical things. And I've done some really fun, exciting stuff. So it was great to kind of go back into that history and retell some of those stories. I was at a Gartner conference.
Yeah.
And I have a story in the book where Francis Ford Coppola, the director, the great director of Godfather and Apocalypse Now, and just an iconic, Hollywood legend, he was speaking at the Gartner conference. Only he was speaking at another part of the conference that I wasn't at, because Gartner used to separate the MDM data management conference from the business intelligence conference. And that used to bug the hell out of me, because I used to tease them. It's like, we don't need, they get better food. They got a better spot. We're down in the basement. Nobody cares about data management. And this proved it. So we had a lunchtime speaker who was a perfectly legitimate client who was talking about data management. And then the business intelligence side of the conference had Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, come on now, right? So I was wearing the same badge. We all had Gartner badges, maybe a slightly different color. And so I just walk up to the bar. I'm like, I'm going to go see Coppola. I don't care. I walk past the person scanning. It's like, I get up to the 10th row, and I got to hear him speak. And I got to ask him a question about how does he know a good story? And that was really fun. I actually found, when I knew he was going to call on me, I hit record on my phone. And so I recorded all the dialogue, and I had to dig out and find this little file. I was like, there it is. So I transcribed it. So it's in the book there, my little story.
Wow.
For a couple of,
I guess.
So that was really fun to do too. But these cartoons were a blast. I did, they had a cartoonist, and I had done some, it's like one here if you could see it.
Wow, yes.
Here's a guy in
Everyone
front of
would.
the table. You can't really see it on there. A guy in front of the table is saying, we can slice and dice our data any way we want to. All I have to do is push a button. And then there's this poor little guy at the end of the table there leaning down. He's like, sir, I'm the button. And, people feel that all the time. So it was fun to kind of put these little cartoons in there and to see them come to life with a professional artist. And
Yes, exactly. I think that's so much fun, right? And putting those cartoons kind of brings in so much energy to. It's like putting in some pictorial thing in just after the whole essay. It looks very cool. But also talking about that, it brings me to an important topic. It's not always alone, Scott. There's someone who always accompanies you, the puppet. And there was a question from Russell. Oh, he did ask, Scott,
yes,
did the
of course,
puppet
Russell. Yeah, absolutely. So
where's it?
the puppet shows as a kid, but my puppets here, I'm looking around for them. I got a box behind me, the CDO, the chief dog officer, the ITB, who speaks only in buzzwords, monkey business. We got some new characters coming. So I mentioned before, I'm not writing a second book right now, but I am working this summer on an epic multi-part Puppets of Data show with some exciting guest speakers, some of whom are on this feed here. I won't scoop myself too much. And they're going to go through, I'm collecting every possible disaster companies can go through in trying to manage and leverage their data on both sides, analytics and data management, and just trying to encapsulate those in a sort of humorous and effective way. So the first thing you do, of course, is you go hire a high-priced consultant. So this group is going to hire a cat consultant from Meow Kinsey. We've got Kate here. She'll be in the puppet show once I write her part, doing something on the data science side. And then they're going to see some demos from some technology providers, Microspoon, Salesforce. So that'll be fun. And some goofy stuff about culture, data dictionaries. I'm just going to try and hit them all. So anybody have any data jokes, send them to me. I'm happy to credit you. And looking for some dialogue. But I find sometimes what I do is I see some comments in LinkedIn where somebody like rails at something I did and they get really, really technical. And I kind of take that dialogue and I put it in Word and I just start playing with it because they know words that I don't know. And I just kind of make it a little more ridiculous. And all of a sudden it becomes really like, something that people really relate to because it's just like a little bit off, but it's based on something real that I couldn't come up with. So that'll teach anybody who writes 2 paragraphs chewing me out on LinkedIn. You might end up in a puppet show. So watch out.
Wow, amazing. So when is it happening? Do we have a month already decided?
No, we don't have. I'm putting no pressure on myself. My goal is to have it out in the fall. And I'm doing the dialogue now. I got to do the recordings. There's a lot of tech, and I'm really trying to up the production values. So I'm having some people do voices, but I'm going to do all the puppets. So I've got to work on being able to sort of lip sync the puppet recording. And people always asking me, not always, but people ask me to do puppets. Doing live puppet interaction is extremely difficult.
Yeah, it is.
A little bit outside of my expertise at this point. Because even when I did it, the one that I did, which a lot of people I think saw, it was line by line edited. So I would do a line like 3 or 4 times, take the best version of that, clip it together. So there's a tremendous amount of editing that goes on versus what looks like kind of a spontaneous conversation between 2, folks. So that's usually why I don't pull out the puppets and suddenly start, I'm not Muppet level yet. I'm not Jim Henson level.
Muppet level. Yes.
Yes. So Michelle, in case you're wondering, you haven't blown the scoop there yet. Yes, I have some ostriches. I have 2 of them. They're the board. So they're the company board, and their heads stuck inside this little box I've got, and they kind of pop out. I've got a couple of comments, but I have these 2 ostriches puppets that I bought. So yes, Michelle, ostriches are there.
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
Scott, we had an interesting question from Ashmita, and she did ask about storytelling in the comments as well. So let's pick this up. How can we simplify talks about data and data management, making it easy for others in non-technical roles understand our goals? Is it as efficient as visualization, conveying ideas and methods? Interesting question.
But buy the book. That's an easy way to do it. So a visualization for data management is showing, one type of it is showing how horrible the data is. So I have it in the book, and I have a slide that I've used for 25 years that is my most requested slide. And it's a display of the 275 ways one organization spells the same customer. And in this case, it's 7-Eleven, which is a convenience store retailer. And we found the 275 different banner name configurations for 7-Eleven. Sometimes it's, spelled out. It's 7 spelled, 11 spelled. There's a dash, there's a star, there's a hyphen, there's store name in there, there's store number. It's all these different ways to spell it. And that usually stops people in their tracks, that kind of example. So while it's not visualization in an analytics perspective, graphs, charts, making the point, it's making a different point, which is, look at this mess. Your data just sucks. There's nothing strategic about this. You can't explain to me that there's a good reason that you have 275 ways to spell 7-Eleven unless you're incentivizing your sales force to spell it differently. This is garbage in, absolutely. This is keeping you from doing what you need to do. And that kind of approach, when I was running a sales team, I affectionately referred to this internally as telling somebody their baby's ugly. You got to shame them. You got to put that report in there. And when you talk too conceptually and they think everything's fine, you have to show them the problem. The delicate part is making sure nobody's necessarily blamed for it. But I look at that and say, why would you want to train your salespeople to be consistently spell 7-Eleven? Is that their job? If you look at the correlation between how well salespeople input their data and how well they're, how well they're meeting quota, I bet there's kind of an inverse thing there. So, the folks who are spending all their time on selling don't have the time to steward all that data.
Right.
And the ones who are have this perfect data, are they selling enough? That's why it's got to be kind of taken away from them and managed in a way. They have to know that it's going to be stewarded and managed by a part of the organization that's there to help them. But regardless, you've got to stop it. So when I was representing companies that help people do that, obviously my pitch was, why are you doing it yourself? You got to get help.
Yeah.
But a long-winded, explanation around, visualization can absolutely have a part to play in telling the data management story when you show people, when you rub their nose as tenderly and as respectfully as it needs to be in this crap that the organization has. And every organization's got it. They all have a shame report somewhere. They all have bad stuff.
Yes, exactly. Also, definitely that is a great answer. But we had someone, Manpreet, obviously, to say Tom Ives does have a good production, so he's been doing some fancy stuff.
Big Tom, our buddy out there for sure. Yes, Tom is doing some fun stuff. I love that, this group that we hang out with. I know you're part of it, and Kate and Susan and George and Tom. What I really like about it, it's the closest I've come to the feeling I used to get being in dramatic arts activity when I was in college, because everybody's creative. Everybody produces stuff. Everybody has their own voice. And whether we all love everything everybody does, that's not the point. They all do something. And that's really fun. You've got a show, people have podcasts. Kate does, is a one-woman machine media company. Suzanne does all this crazy stuff with Susan does with lip syncing and all the rest of it. But we all produce something. So for me, it's really fun and it's really gratifying to kind of talk shop and know everybody delivers. That's the thing. We're all sitting there and we know we deliver for our audiences in the way we need to deliver with our own perspective. But it's a really creative group. So that's
Yeah, it's super fun, right? And
yeah.
also, Suzanne here is asking you something. Do you have tooth pants as well?
He knows the answer to that. I'm not. The truth is, I'm not showing you my pants, Susan. Susan. But we do have more truth hats. I guess this is the disco truth hat. We've got my varsity truth hat. We have eco
Wow.
truth here. Well, so I got a couple more. I will be coming out with a line of truth hats, so it's coming. Don't worry. I've got to
Scott,
get
someone
into the merch side of the space.
exactly. Where can people actually buy the truth hat?
Nothing yet. Not yet. It'll be on my website. I'm redoing my website. That's another big plan for the year. Should be coming out in June, and I'll have a little like merch section of
Wow.
that. So more to come on the truth hats and the merch, the Data Whisperer merchandise. But first things
Can't
first, got to
wait.
get the website up.
Awesome. Good question from Erica. How do you tell a complete data story when there are big data gaps with data information that isn't readily available?
Eric, I think you're really talking about an analytics data story.
Mm.
When I talk about a data management data story, it's not about sort of big data gaps and filling in data. It's about the foundational stuff. Do you have a common understanding of your relationships, customer, vendor, partner, prospect? Do you have some standardized structured data about your products and services that can go into all those other things? Do you have you created an internal standard that people are adopting and supporting? Are you able to integrate and interoperate cleanly with your business partners? Those are the parts that I deal with. That's a lot earlier than kind of analyzing big data.
Yep.
Most of the focus in the data space is on where data ends up. I'm on the part where data starts. Where do you start? And you got to start in the right place. You got to start with these standards. You got to start with management being the foundation of what you do. You've got to start with a common understanding. You've got to start to cut across those silos in some way. I'm not going to design it for people.
Right.
But getting that truth first, determining that truth in data first is where you have to start. Otherwise, the meaning you derive later is going to be meaningless. It's just not going to be actionable.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it's about the start, as you say. I think the gaps are kind of in the later stage. So, makes sense. Okay. There's an interesting question again from Manpreet. How do you think being creative makes one connect more with your audience, and how did it help you grow?
I mean, I'm not bragging here. I just know my strengths. I'm in that, I've always been a creative person. I've always been trying to do, when I was a little kid, when I was in junior high school, instead of writing a paper, I would do a game, or I'd do an animation, or I'd do a film. There was no video then that I had access to. I'd do a little Super 8 animation movie about Napoleon instead of writing a paper about Napoleon. So it was always my natural tendency to find a different way to convey the message. I think I bring that to this very day. I write white papers, but I'd rather do puppet shows. Same Scott here, decades later. And that creativity, if you can listen to people, if you can react, if you can be empathetic, if you can bring your energy, I say all the time, credit half, at least half of my effectiveness is based on kind of the energy, the intention, the spirit of what I'm talking about, rather than the actual words themselves. And you feel that if you're at a conference and somebody's just up there like, all right, well, I'm the last thing between you and drinks, and I'm the last thing between you and lunch. I mean, I'm a guy. I heckle people like that. I go, then get out of the way. If you don't think you should be there, then I don't want to listen to you. I won't say that aloud, but that's what they're telling you. You got to be really careful about when you start. Don't use these. You've got to show some kind of confidence. You got to show that you want to be there. You've got a right to be there. You're going to change the way people think. In this next moment, they're going to feel differently when you're done than before you started. If you don't have that, then you shouldn't be up there. That's my feeling.
Yeah,
No matter
it does
what the
make sense.
topic area. But we see this all the time. These people, I don't, if you, again, my worst one, the one I hate the most is, I'm the last thing between you and drinks.
Wow, it does make all sense, Scott. And also, one last question from the audience that I'll take is from
All
Zach.
right, Jack.
Yes, where is the good place to start from building a data story in an early growth company that doesn't have a large data set? Interesting.
That's a great question, Zach. So one, just work on whatever your offering is. Just get that up and going. And then and have in the back of your head, okay, we're going to want to standardize some of this stuff and see if there are standardized data sets you can use instead of creating it yourself. I don't know what kind of business you're in, but I worked with a lot of early stage data companies, and they might be producing some new insight about products. And I was an advisor. It's another thing I do. If you're looking for, sort of advisory help, I'm happy to do that. That's a fun thing I do. And I love sort of, imparting my experience and wisdom for folks because I've just seen so many mistakes happen.
Yep.
But this company was producing some new insight on products, and their leader said, oh, and then once we get this done, we could become the standard data about products. I said, no, you can't. Don't buy. No. Well, you did it at DB. You did it. It's like it is so hard to become a standardized data set, and it's it's not the purpose of your business. Focus on the purpose of your business. But Zach, the short answer is get help if you need it, or recognize you're going to need some help as you grow, especially around managing the relationship data you've got. Hierarchy, segmentation, identification. Keep the scope and the focus of what you're trying to do on the offering you've got, and don't split your focus on trying to create this foundational data if you don't have to do it all yourself. Get help. There's a lot of people out there who can help you with that.
Awesome. I think that definitely does make a lot of sense.
But there's a point where it doesn't make sense. I don't do a lot of data management in my organization. I'm, a 2-person shop. I got me and my business partner. She does all the business, a lot of the business stuff. I'm kind of the face guy and do the, the external stuff. But we don't have enough customers to have us, an MDM program. I get all kinds of, because I spend so much time listening to how people talk about stuff. I sign up for all kinds of webinars and white papers, and I get a call a day at least from somebody going, oh, we want to help you build your data warehouse. I don't have a data warehouse. Okay. How can ML and machine learning help you drive your business? I don't have any machines to teach anything. Okay. I just talk for a living in a variety of different ways. I don't have hundreds of customers. I have lots of products. I don't have a lot of systems. I'm not an enterprise. Right. So there's a level at which you've got to find, that's why I say at the enterprise level. So even though you're an early growth company, you want to be an enterprise, just watch when that starts to get out of control, trying to anticipate it. If you're buying multiple systems, if you have a CRM and an ERP and a fintech system, all right, you better get those entities aligned across those silos before you get too long. If you're running your whole business off of Excel, like I am, I don't have like hundreds of bills every month. There's just so much, you don't need a lot of hardcore heavy duty help.
Yes, that's right. Awesome. I think that definitely answers Zach's question. Thanks, Scott. Okay, one last question from my end, Scott. If someone wants to buy your book, where should they visit?
Go to technicspubs.com. Telling your data story. Just search for that. Use my discount code, Data Whisper, save 20% off. Go to Amazon if you like. They've got it as well. And remember, it's data storytelling for data management. I got a 1-star review in Amazon for somebody who said, it's not going to teach you data storytelling. It's all about data management. And you can't respond to reviews anymore. But I thought, all right, did you read the whole cover of the book? That's all you had to do. You didn't have to. Maybe did you only read the title, but you didn't read the subhead of the book? So it's whoever that person is. Read the whole cover of the book. It's data storytelling for data management. That's the deal.
Robert has already read your book. Worth the money.
Thank you, Robert. Great to see you. Always pop it up there. Super.
Awesome. Last question, Scott. Again, if people want to reach out to you, which is the best place, and if someone wants to book you for consulting gigs, where can they
I'm
reach
there.
out to
Reach
you?
out to me. For now, LinkedIn is my central place of truth. I don't have a website that's worth anything right now. I'm working with somebody to get that going. But until then, LinkedIn's always a good place to find me. You can find me there. I'm delighted. If you actually search for Scott Taylor Data, I come up above the fold now. So hooray. There's a couple other Scott
Yes.
Taylors out there who come up above me if you just search for that. But the organic search is working because I've been just plugging this stuff for a couple of years now, and it's Google's starting to pay attention. So that's good.
But great talking to you, Scott. Thank you very much for being on the Ravit Show. It was fun.
Ravit, always great to see you. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Bye-bye.